Hi everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing well as usual. So I'm back today after a few weeks break with a collection update actually. I was recently in Australia, so when I was traveling there, I actually picked up quite a few CDs. Yeah, a few albums, more than I expected actually, because I visited two places, and as a result, there's quite a lot to talk about. So what I've decided to do is divide it into two videos. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about the albums which I picked up in Tasmania, of which there are 3. And today's collection update is quite eclectic. So there's one black metal album, one heavy metal album, and one rock album, you could say. So that immediately gives you an idea if you're going to enjoy this video or not, like in terms of genres. But I will just say this, if today's video doesn't really float your boat in terms of the content, please note that with the next update, where I bought some albums in Sydney, that's got like 5 very well established and respected extreme metal bands, so that might be more of people's cup of tea, you could say. But I still think the albums I'm talking about today are great, but don't be put off if you only like the extreme stuff, because there's more of that coming. That's basically what I'm saying. Okay, so yes, as I said, 3 albums to talk about today, 3 different genres, so we'll get straight into it. So this was, by the way, just these 3 albums I picked up at Tommy Gun Records in Hobart, Tasmania. So Hobart is the capital of Tasmania, and they don't have a lot of music shops there. Oh, like they kind of do, but it's hard to find stuff. But Tommy Gun, it sort of sells mainstream stuff and also, you know, albums from all sorts of genres, but they also have a decent metal section. So yeah, I went there. Like they have JB Hi-Fi and chains like that, and you can occasionally find stuff. But yeah, Tommy Gun is a good shop if you're ever in Hobart. So without further ado, we will get into it. So the first album I picked up, this is DIMMU BORGIR with, I can't believe it, Death Cult Armageddon. I actually had this in my mind, and why didn't I forget it? I was distracted by that barking dog. Sorry about that. Okay, so first of all, it's all right, guys. You don't have to automatically unsubscribe or dislike the video just because it's DIMMU BORGIR. So I'll get into that. Like, DIMMU BORGIR get a lot of criticism as like the world's most popular and commercial black metal band, but I don't even like to use the term commercial because, you know, it's every band's dream to be popular and sell a lot of records, so you can't really blame any band for being popular. And I think their place in terms of being popular is well deserved because they're a very good band with a consistent sound. But having said that, it's obviously not for everybody. Like Fenriz from Dark Throne once made the analogy. He said, in terms of Dark Throne's music, he said, we make bread, other bands make cake. So obviously meaning that bands like Dark Throne are quite minimalist, like the instruments are just guitars, bass, drums, and vocals, whereas the bands which make cake are the more sort of grandiose symphonic black metal bands that use a lot of keyboards and effects. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, as most of you probably know, I like keyboard-based black metal. So to me, it just seems boring to just listen to the same type of raw black metal all the time. I just don't see the point in that. Like, where the production sounds like a pissed off bee in a biscuit tin every single album, or every single band copying Dark Throne. What's the point of that? So yes, this band, I'm not the world's biggest fan of DIMMU BORGIR, but I do like them. So whenever I see like an album by them, you know, at a discounted or secondhand price, I'll definitely pick it up, as I did with this one. So yeah, so Fenriz made the analogy like Dark Throne makes bread and bands like DIMMU BORGIR make cake. I think they were the kinds of bands he was referring to. In the case of DIMMU BORGIR, it's a bit like a wedding cake. So you know how a wedding cake is very fancy with rich icing and a lot of edible sugar art. So analogically, I think I got that word right. Yeah, that means that, you know, with DIMMU BORGIR, they kind of play the kind of black metal which is very overdone and grandiose and over the top. But I don't necessarily mean this in a bad way. It's just that it's very complex and detailed music with a lot of different elements and layered heavily with keyboards and symphonic and orchestral elements. So there's a lot of bells and whistles with a band like DIMMU BORGIR. And with this band, they've even actually performed with orchestras. And so a lot of people have criticized that, saying, oh, it's so pompous and over the top. But in my opinion, with symphonic black metal, that's the most appropriate style of music to play black metal with, as opposed to, you know, like something like Kiss or Scorpions, who have also done that. But yeah, so there are a lot of moments on this album which sound very orchestral. I don't know if they played with an orchestra on this or it was just synth effects, but yes, if you like very sort of grandiose symphonic orchestral black metal, you'll like this album. But yeah, having said that, it's not for everybody and not for all black metal fans, obviously, but I like to change it up sometimes. So while DIMMU BORGIR are certainly not in my top 10 or even top 20 black metal bands, I would say, I still enjoy listening to them once in a while, and I think they're a pretty reliable band in that you know that with their albums, they're at least going to be good. That's what I would say, and this one certainly is as well. So on this album, the music is often very complex, detailed, and varied, but it always flows so well and remains very catchy, even with the transitions and the time changes, which are just, there's plenty of those. And I think it was the writer, Keith Harris, in this documentary, he said, DIMMU BORGIR, yes, they're a bit ridiculous, but annoyingly catchy. And I think that's a really good description, actually. So yes, you know what you're getting here. It's symphonic black metal, which is very polished and well produced. Yes, and I've listened to this a couple of times and I have enjoyed it. The first couple of tracks you go, oh yep, it's business as usual. And then there's quite a few songs with standout moments on this. Like some of those moments, like on track 3, Lepers Among Us, I really like the haunting synth lines, and there are some staccato thrashy riffs and some galloping, catchy mid-pace riffs. And that's something interesting about DIMMU BORGIR, is that they don't always play that cliched tremolo riffing style, but they're often very sort of staccato, thrashy riffs. That's sort of a trademark sound of DIMMU BORGIR, I would say. Okay, and also track 4, entitled Vredesbyrd, I think, Norwegian word or something, I'm guessing. Yeah, that was actually released as a single. That's got some haunting synth lines and also some very catchy riffs and a lot of different eerie synth effects used in this song. And there are even some symphonic brass moments. So like, as I said, sometimes it actually sounds like an orchestra, but I don't know if they're effects. Yeah. Okay, another standout track for me is track 5, entitled For the World to Dictate Our Death. Yep. So that's fast and blasting with some excellent riffs and tinkly, icy keyboards. There's also a lot of staccato chugging riffs and stop-start riffs, but it's always catchy. So you see, that's a common sound with DIMMU BORGIR, these staccato, thrashy kind of riffs, but like they really stand out and they're very catchy. Track 6, entitled Blood Hunger Doctrine, that sounds like an epic orchestral piece, but it even includes some classical piano. So like they really do go over the top with the bells and whistles and the orchestral symphonic sound, but it sounds good, you know. Now track 7, which has a Norwegian title that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, this proves, interestingly, like a lot of people complain about DIMMU BORGIR saying, oh, they just drown all their music in synths and that's wimpy. I fail to see that as being wimpy, but anyway, on this track, track 7, it actually proves that they don't always rely on synths and that there are some bare guitar riffs at moments in the song, particularly at the beginning. So you do hear a lot of guitars just on their own. Oh, and at this point, I'll say something interesting about DIMMU BORGIR. While they use a lot of synths, they're like this all-inclusive band where it's sort of like they present the music such that, oh yes, we do use a lot of keyboards, but we can do lead guitars as well, like guitar solos, and we also have clean vocals. So the clean vocalist on this is Vortex, who's also the bass player, and Shagrath is the raspy black metal vocalist. So they have 2 vocalists, but yeah, that changes it up. Vortex's voice, it sounds a bit like Ishan, but perhaps more polished, I would say. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the clean vocals in DIMMU BORGIR, they're okay. They don't do a lot for me, but it's just, you know, it keeps the variety in there. So some other good tracks, track 8, Cataclysm Children. This is the same thing. It proves that the band is not always relying on synths, and the riffs are incredibly catchy, hypnotic, and groovy. There are also some piercing, atmospheric, clean guitars. So I love how DIMMU BORGIR uses all these different elements. It's interesting, and there are more classical pianos on that song. Track 9, entitled Eradication Instinct Defined, that starts off sounding like a synth instrumental, but builds up and becomes even more symphonic, then launches into a full-scale black metal attack with some catchy and heavy riffs. So yes, while there's a lot of atmosphere on this album, there's also a lot of aggression, a lot of diversity. So it's very riff-oriented, yes, in addition to being symphonic. So yes, it's an enjoyable listen. All right, so now, do I have any criticisms of this album? Yes, because I mean, I'm not just saying that to be a picky bitch or complain, but I'm sure you want honest reviews. So my only criticism, just like a wedding cake, the album does seem a bit overdone in the sense that while all songs are good, it seems like like more of the same towards the end, and the album does seem to drag on a bit and a bit long, but it's nowhere near as bad in that sense as a Watain album. You know, like Watain releases 70, 80-minute albums, and for me that's just way too long. But yeah, so the album does drag a bit, and additionally, while there are certain standout moments in quite a few songs, I would have to say that no songs really grab me by the throat and command my undivided attention at this stage. So at the moment, I don't really have any obvious favorite songs, just a lot of standout moments on certain songs. But perhaps this will change over time. So obviously it's by no means a bad album. In fact, it's very good. It's overall, I would say it's a good, enjoyable, solid release of symphonic, well-produced black metal. So I don't normally give scores for albums, but just to give you some rough idea, I'd probably give this album at this stage a 7, but I really enjoy it. So yeah, good stuff. So just showing you the cover here. So all 6 band members on the back. Now showing you the booklet. It came, interestingly, with just this single sheet, because I think the original artwork doesn't have the logo, as you will see. So yeah, very thick booklet with all the band members and the lyrics. And yes, now you see the cheesesteaks coming in with these illustrations. Yeah. So when I looked up this album, it said the photos are representing the band living out their fantasies, apparently. So there's Golda, who's now returned to Old Man's Child, you know, as his sole focus. Picture of the band there. See all of the lyrics, which I need to spend more time with. But yeah, 6 members of this band, because they have 2 guitarists and a keyboardist and a vocalist. You know, well, 2 vocalists, one of which plays bass. So there's that. And just showing you the disc here. Yep. And oh, actually, I think the drummer on this album was Nick Barker. I think with the bald head. You know, the guy who was in the drummer of Cradle of Filth originally. So he went on to perform with this band. So yeah, it's a star-studded lineup, as always. And this album came out about 23 years ago, hard to believe. And the fact that I've never heard it, but as I said, like I hadn't heard it before this, but like I said, I'm never in a rush to pick up DIMMU BORGIR because they're not one of my favorite bands, but I still like them. So yeah, good stuff. DIMMU BORGIR with Death Cult Armageddon. And it's interesting that this band always uses 3-word nonsensical titles like Death Cult Armageddon, Godless Savage Garden, Puritanical Euphoric Misanthropia, Spiritual Black Dimensions. That's their thing. But yeah, if you like well-produced symphonic black metal, good album, DIMMU BORGIR with Death Cult Armageddon. All right. Coming up next, so now we're moving on to heavy metal, and this album needs no introduction, and I don't need to say much about it because you all know it. And that is, of course, Iron Maiden with Power Slave. Classic album, and believe it or not, I've never owned this in original format until now. Is that a metal crime? I think it could be, possibly, yeah. But yes, as you know, you've probably heard me say countless times, Iron Maiden is one of my favorite heavy metal bands of all time, but for some reason this album just eluded me. Like, I've heard it many times, I had heard it many times, but I never owned it in original format. But when I was at Tommy Gun, I saw this. It was brand spanking new in a digipack for the price of a secondhand CD, so it would be rude not to buy it, wouldn't it? So yes, like I said, this is just an absolute classic album. It's regarded as one of the band's best, I would say, and I can see why, definitely. It's a very diverse album. Oh, wait, sorry, no, sorry. I'm mixing up my notes here. Sorry, that was for the next one. Sorry about that, but yeah, you all know this album. So galloping heavy metal with bass high in the mix, very epic, very atmospheric. You all know it, I'm sure. But it's funny, while I knew this album, I really only knew the 4 big hits from this, so it was interesting for me, now that I own it in original format, to dive into some of the more obscure songs, which I really like. For example, I'll talk about some of those more obscure ones, like Flash of the Blade. I really like the melodic, hypnotic, energetic riff. It sounds very 80s and very heavy metal, really cool. The Duelists is a good song. That's got some bouncy, melodic galloping and a decent, memorable chorus. And yeah, that's what I will say. With these lesser known, more obscure songs, they've got that classic Maiden sound, so they were instantly likable to me. Back in the Village is good as well. And the only song which doesn't grab me much is Lost for Words, which is the the instrumental, and I'll just give you the reasons why. Like, I'm not really against heavy metal instrumentals, but I've never got into them much, so I'm not the biggest fan. Are there any exceptions? Yes, some, maybe like the Call of Cthulhu by Metallica, but yeah, just not a huge fan of heavy metal instrumentals, but it's a decent track. But of course, my favorites are the four most famous songs, like Aces High, you know, which begins with Churchill's speech, and you know, when it's just got that dashing, galloping riff, which is really fast, so energetic, you're automatically hooked and reeled into the brilliance of that song, so I absolutely love it. And fantastic chorus, which makes you just want to sing your heart out. Maybe I just speak for myself there. 2 Minutes to Midnight is another classic song, of course. And let's talk about my favorite song on the album. Got to be the title track, Power Slave. Just that brilliant galloping riff. It's so quintessentially Iron Maiden, especially with the very audible bass in the foreground of the mix. It's fantastic. And I really like Bruce Dickinson's vocals, which sound sort of like eerie and evil in that song, like you know, especially the opening line, like into the abyss I fall, the eye of Horus. Absolutely brilliant. Like, oh, like just the riffs and the galloping, absolutely fantastic. I love the chorus too of Power Slave. I always want to sing my heart out on that, and I do. And that reminds me, you know, in the Flight 666 documentary, when they're performing this song in Costa Rica, and Bruce is wearing the traditional Egyptian mask, and there's that woman in the audience when she's singing along. So like when he says, "For he is a man of God and he will die too," she's just pumping her fist, getting into it. It's just classic. I love it, and I know how she feels. That's what I act like when I hear the song. So Power Slave, brilliant song. And I also love Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Again, just got that classic Maiden-esque gallop and riffing, and it's so addictive. Like when I was at my brother's house recently, we were just listening to that on the balcony, and I was going, fuck, this is a really good song. So yeah, I'm just so happy to own this album. I'm ecstatic, actually. So I've probably said enough, you all know it, but brilliant album, like great production, and it sounds very quintessentially 1980s heavy metal, so good stuff. Look at this. I just love this epic artwork of Eddie as the pharaoh on the pyramid. As you've probably heard me say, I'm very interested in ancient Egyptian history, you know, having studied it at school and everything, and I really like the imagery, so they've really captured this well. You have that on the back there with Anubis, absolutely brilliant in this sunlit temple. So cool. Like Iron Maiden has one of the best mascots, some of the best artworks ever. Comes in this nice slick digipack, which is cool as well. So there's the disc. I love this band photo. Sorry about the glare, guys. So you see the band standing over the sarcophagus. Simply brilliant. And just show you the booklet, even though you've probably seen this before. This is my first time opening it, actually. So yep, cover art, credits, picture of the band again. Eddie as the mummy, and that iconic picture of Anubis. Ah, absolutely brilliant. So, you know, I've talked in previous videos, like when I did the Iron Maiden thread for Christian Osorio, like about my favorite Iron Maiden albums. This could become one of them now that I own it, because obviously you invest more time in an album when you actually own it in original format. At least I do. So absolutely brilliant stuff. This was from 1984, so you know, when the band was at their absolute peak, you know, which I would say, most people would say was probably like from 82 to 87. Yeah, it was the pinnacle of their brilliance, but like I like all Iron Maiden anyway, so fantastic stuff. Buy it if you don't own it. Iron Maiden with Power Slave. All right, and now we come to the part of the video which some people may not care about, but it's my channel, so I'm going to talk about this album anyway. It is rock music. It's not for everyone, so, you know, you'll quickly learn if you like it or not. I also picked up Mick Jagger with Goddess in the Doorway. It's funny, see the way the font is written here, all the letters are just put together, so I had one of those mind warp moments and I was like, Godessi, oh no, Goddess in the Hallway, okay. Yeah, so just one of those mind warp moments. But yes, if you've been watching my channel for a few years, you'll know that I'm a fan of Mick Jagger's solo career. As for the Rolling Stones, I do like them, but I actually prefer Mick's solo career because he has more of a rock, hard rock sound, whereas the Stones is more bluesy. But I mean, I still like that as well. But about 6 years ago, I gave a lot of praise to those first solo albums by Mick Jagger, She's the Boss and Primitive Cool, which are both excellent, by the way, bordering on hard rock in some moments, but just so catchy. I put on the song She's the Boss at the pub the other night, and it got the whole place moving. So this is the fourth and most recent of his solo albums. The only one I don't own is one which came out in the 90s. I'll pick that up if I can. So I think this one came out in 2003. And what do I have to say about it? What the hell? Sorry. What do I have to say about it? Well, first of all, when I played it the first time with the first couple of songs, I thought, this doesn't grab me too much, but I've listened to it about 3 or 4 times now, and I like it more with each listen. So this is a very diverse album. It includes some reflective power ballads, some straightforward rockers, and some kind of funky tracks, which he did do on albums like She's the Boss, but all the diversity, it's all bound together cohesively with Mick's unique songwriting atmosphere and vocal style. And yeah, I would say this album has a lot of common threads with the ballad style songs in particular from his 80s solo albums. So for example, especially songs like Party Doll from the Primitive Cool album. So if you happen to like those 80s Mick Jagger albums, you will enjoy a lot of this, definitely. My only criticism is that there are maybe too many slow ballads on this, or power ballads, but I can still appreciate the musical talent. Yeah, just with like those kind of slow power ballads, that's not really the overall style of music that I'd listen to frequently. You have to be in a certain mood to listen to this. But overall, I still really enjoy this album for what it is, and there are quite a few standout tracks. So let's go into some of my favorites here. Track 2, entitled Joy, that has some cool hard rocking riffs which stand out. So like I said, this is borderline hard rock sometimes, but like, let's be real, it's not like extremely heavy or anything, but it's cool, you know. Also track 4, entitled God Gave Me Everything, that's got some rocking riffs, and it's got a bit of an INXS vibe. Like if you think of the INXS album Welcome to Wherever You Are, which had Taste It and All Around, you know, it's got that kind of vibe. I can't say how, but just in terms of the atmosphere. So I certainly don't mean that as an insult to Mick, because I like INXS. So yeah, that's a good track. Also track 6, entitled Don't Call Me Up, that's kind of like a depressing power ballad with some orchestral and classical elements, but it builds and builds to become this very powerful rock song. So that's a song about breaking up, so something that we can all relate to, I'm sure. Track 7, the title track, so Goddess in the Doorway, this is probably my favorite track on the album. It's an atmospheric rocking track which sounds quite epic, with very memorable vocal melodies, and it features some atmospheric wailing female vocal melodies and interesting effects. So yeah, it's another example of Mick doing that classic rocking stuff, which is really good. Track 8, entitled Lucky Day, that's got quite a funky but atmospheric track with cool guitar and keyboard effects. It has a lot of wah-wah pedal work, and it sounds like it would be a good soundtrack to a bar atmosphere, as was the song Primitive Cool from the album by the same name in the 80s. Now track 9, entitled Everybody Getting High. This one is rocking and funky. This one has a very Rolling Stones vibe, if you ask me. So it's probably the closest to a Rolling Stones track that you're going to get on this album. It's got funky rhythms and riffs, some heavy electric guitar effects, and a powerful, catchy anthemic chorus. So a lot of strong elements or components to this song. As the track progresses, it incorporates some orchestral elements to lift the atmosphere, and the guitar licks are very melodic and memorable. So Everybody Getting High is very Stones-esque, you could say. I also really like track 10, entitled Gun. It features some almost like techno dance beats and atmospheric clean guitars, and the chorus is very rocking and heavy. I have nothing against techno and dance beats. As you probably heard me say, I do appreciate a lot of electronic music, so I think it's cool that he's incorporating that into his rock style. And I also really like track 12, entitled Brand New Set of Rules, I think. Yeah, that's got that classic, exaggerated, twangy Mick Jagger vocal style. I'm not going to replicate it because I'll probably sound silly, but you know what I mean. Which was also featured on his other solo albums from the 80s, like She's the Boss and Primitive Cool. So yeah, you can see that I like most of the songs on this album, and even the ones that I dislike, they're still all right. So while I'm not as fond of the power ballad kind of songs, I can still appreciate the talent, and even the non-standout or non-favorite tracks for me are still very good. and the album is an enjoyable listen from beginning to end. Like I said, I enjoy this more with each listen, which is a good sign. And yeah, saying that, like, we all have our favorite styles of music. So like my favorites are probably, well, as you know, black metal, death metal, and heavy metal. But I also like music which is different and which challenges me and isn't always immediately or obviously likable. And that was the case with this album because it got better with each listen. So yeah, good stuff. Very glad to have picked this up. I almost wasn't going to. And then I thought, might as well, and glad I did. So there's the cover. And the booklet, it's a bit awkward, but yeah, just got all the lyrics here. It's one of those fold-out pieces. And there's a picture of Mick looking freaked out. So I guess that's the goddess in the doorway, so referring to the song, the album title. But yeah, so I'll deal with this later. Yeah, so I know, yeah, it's not going to appeal to everyone, but if you like just traditional classic rock music, you will probably enjoy this. And like I said, if you appreciated his solo stuff from the 80s, like albums like She's the Boss and Primitive Cool, there are common threads with that, and it's a really good listen. So Mick Jagger with Goddess in the Doorway. Did I get that right? Yeah. All right, so there we have it, guys. They're the 3 albums that I'm talking about today. So we will wrap it up there. I've got a couple of videos coming up where I definitely know what I'm going to do. The next one will be a black metal vinyl video. So I'm looking forward to doing that. That's a very special chapter. And then after that, I will do the other Sydney collection update, which features 5 very well-established and respected extreme metal bands. So even if today's video didn't grab you as much, rest assured that the next 2 probably will if you love the extreme stuff. Hopefully. Anyway, so thanks a lot. It's good to be back. Thank you, as always, for supporting the channel. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, all that good stuff. Always love to hear from people and get some discussion going, so let's continue with that, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye.